everyone, and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to talk about my first quarter TBR. I like to do quarter TBRs just because sometimes my life gets a little bit busy and I don't always read everything that I say I'm going to in, like, you know, if I do a January or February TBR or March TBR, that kind of stuff. And then also sometimes I just get a little like the next book that's on my TBR to read, I'm just like, I don't really feel like reading it. Now I'm going to try really, really hard to stick to what I've written down for my immediate TBR. I obviously have a shelf over here to my right that is my TBR shelf. And really, these three rows here as well are TBR, but these ones I try to get to first. So it can change, but this year I'm going to really, really try hard to stick to what I've written to read for January, February, and March. So it's pretty ambitious, I would say, for me. So hopefully I can achieve this. It will be very rewarding for me personally, because I like to check mark off things that I get done. So without further ado, let's talk about my first quarter TBR. Okay, so I've broken them down into 3 different categories. So I have Kindle reads, nonfiction reads, and physical reads. So the Kindle reads are basically, they're only on my Kindle. I do not have the physical copy. Nonfiction could be, I had the physical copy or it's on my Kindle. They're just considered nonfiction. And then physical reads. Now the physical read, it does not mean that I'm not going to try to find a digital copy, so that way I can take my Kindle out and about with me instead of the physical book. That way my physical book doesn't get damaged or anything like that. So first let's talk about January, and I will have a little picture up here of if I don't have the physical book. So the first one that I plan to, actually I just need to finish it, is Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill. So this is from the Bound, is it from the Bound and the Broken series by Ryan Cahill? So this is the second book. So he's got novellas and he's got 3 books out right now. I think the 4th book comes out in 2025. But I'm on the second one. I'm only on chapter 10 and it's a decently long book. I think Kindle pages, it has like 800 and some. So I really need to prioritize reading some of that, so that way I can finish that and mark that off my list. So that is one that I plan to read on Kindle for January. And then the other one is Rising from Flames and Starlight. This is the 2nd book in the series. I read the first one actually pretty quickly last year. And I think this one will go quickly as well. So that's why I threw it in there just as like a quick little read. So hopefully I can get both of those Kindle reads done. Now for nonfiction, I have 2. The first one is Omnivore's Dilemma, and this one is really just a continuation. I need to finish it as I'm not even halfway through. But I do need to prioritize trying to read at least some nonfiction a day so I can get it done. And then the next one is Metabolical, and that one is on Kindle. So there will be some going back and forth on my Kindle reading a little bit because I do have some nonfictions on there that I just decided to read because they were on Kindle Unlimited instead of just buying the book. Now, if I really, really like it and I think it would be worth being on my shelf, then I'll buy the nonfiction. But it's on Kindle Unlimited, so I thought I would utilize that. Now, the physical books I plan to read for January. The first one is A Monsoon Rising, and this is the second one in the Hurricane Wars series. So I've been excited for this one to come out. I wasn't necessarily thrilled about the romance that was in the Hurricane Wars. I'm hoping it gets a little bit better in this one, but I love the world. So I'm super excited to be picking this up and to be continuing on with this series. The next book is to finish a series, and that is The Poison Song by Jen Williams. I know I said I was going to try to, I think, finish it in 2024, but that's not going to happen. I'm filming this in 2024, and I've only got a few days left, so with how long this is, it would carry over into 2025 anyway. So I decided to pick up a shorter book, and then pick this one up at the top of 2025 so I can get it done. Then after that, I like to do long, short, so that way I don't get bogged down. But I have A Study in Drowning as the next one that I plan to read. So I'm super excited about this one. This is a YA, and I heard there's a romance in it. But I'm really, really intrigued by this. And it's not too long either. It's about 376 pages. I don't know if there's a second one to this or not. But it's pretty short, so I thought I could get through this fairly quickly, especially because my last book that I plan to read in January is none other than Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, and this is book 2 in the Stormlight Archives. And this is over 1,000 pages, so it will take me a little bit to read this. So I'm hoping I get my physical reads done fairly early in January, so that way I can read this. Because whatever I don't get done in January is obviously going to filter like over. So hopefully, cross your fingers for me. It is going to be difficult. So then let's move on to February. So February, I have 2, and one is a novella by Ryan Cahill, and it's called The Exile. So I plan to read that. I don't know how many Kindle pages it is. Hopefully it's not too long because it's technically a novella. And then the second one, I'm going to start Spark of the Everflame. I'm really excited about this. I've heard there's a super slow burn romance in this and amazing world building. So I'm very, very excited to start picking this up. If I like it, I'm definitely going to be buying the physical copies of it. But they're on Kindle Unlimited, so I thought might as well go ahead and pick it up, start reading it, and if I like it, I'll buy the physical copy. So then I have 2 nonfictions on Kindle that I plan to read in February, and that is The Disease Delusion and the Plant Paradox. So those 2 have already flashed up there for you, but I've been really interested in food recently, and I've loved learning about it, so that's why I wanted to like kind of finish all of those together. So those are the 2 nonfictions that I plan to read in February. And then I have 4 physical reads as well. Since it is technically like, you know, romance month with Valentine's Day and all that stuff, I figured I'd pick up some romances. So the first book I have is Not in Love by Allie Hazelwood. I love Allie Hazelwood. This is another contemporary adult romance, so I'm super excited to read this one. It's not too long either. I think it's about 400 pages. Yeah, just under 400 pages for this, so not too long. Allie Hazelwood is really, really easy to read, and it's so, and I get through them really, really quick. So I was like, it's the month of love, so might as well read some romance. The next one is the queen of romance, and that is Emily Henry, and the book is People We Meet on Vacation. This has been on my shelf for years, and I need to read it. I keep wanting to read it during summer, and I never get to it. So I've just decided it's going to be cold in February, so I'm going to pretend I'm at the beach, and I'm going to read this. So I'm excited to read Emily Henry. I love Emily Henry. So she is on my list, and I'm excited. So the next book I plan to read, and I don't have it yet, it will be here in January, and that is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I'm so excited to read this. So it'll have probably already been out like a month by the time I read it, but I have other priorities. So I thought, well, it gets me back into my fantasy, and it's romance, and I can throw that in with February, and that way I can get it done. Now the problem with that is, if I read it, I don't know when the fourth one's gonna come out. So I'm gonna have to wait, but that's okay. I'll just deal with it. So yeah, I'm super excited to be picking that one up. And then the last book in February is Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. I meant to read this last year, but I never got around to it. As many books I meant to read last year, I just never got around to it. So I'm trying to prioritize a bunch of my backlogged books, and I'm excited to continue on in the God Killer series. I'm not sure if this is the last one or not, so I'll have to figure that out once I read it. But yeah, I'm super excited. So March, I've decided to kind of drop a little bit for Kindle and my nonfiction. I decided to do just one instead of two. I'll probably pick up two again in the second quarter. But for my Kindle read in March, it's going to be Glow of the Everflame. So I'm excited to move on in the series, hoping that I like it. If I don't like it, then I'll, scratch that and put something else on there. But I really think I'm going to like it. So that's why I have Glow of the Everflame on my list. And then the next nonfiction book that I plan to read is When Money Destroys Nations. And this one is super short, but I thought would be really interesting. I've had it for a while on my shelf, and I'm really intrigued about money as well, and like investing and other stuff. So it's always good to learn about all kinds of different things. So very excited to pick up this nonfiction book. So then that brings me to my physical reads. So March is going to be the month of Lord of the Rings. So I have all three here. I plan on reading all three in the month of March. Now, will I read them in tandem, or will I read one, do a different book, another one, a different book, and so on? I haven't quite decided. It all depends, because I've never read these. I've only watched the movie, any of the movies really. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Hobbit trilogy, the Hobbit that they made a trilogy in movies, and then Rings of Power. So I've only ever watched the story. I've never read the story other than the Hobbit. So I plan on reading Lord of the Rings in March. I'm excited to finally pick it up. And the other two books, because in the Lord of the Rings, it is epic fantasy. So there's going to be fighting, there's going to be adventure, there's going to be all that kind of stuff. There's not going to be a whole lot of like romance, and I enjoy some romance. So that's where I've decided to throw in a couple books in March that have a little bit of a fantasy romance background, if not fully fantasy romance background. But the first one is The City of Stardust, and this one I just picked up randomly at a store. I really enjoyed the cover, and then I read the synopsis and I thought this would be really intriguing. So I decided to pick this one up and put that on my March TBR. And the second one was a pre-order off of Amazon from last year, and I'm pretty positive this mainly focuses on romance, and I think it has something to do with vampires, which I'm super excited about. And that is The Stars Are Dying. And actually the second one comes out here shortly as well. So probably going to be reading the second one soon after this one, depending on how much I like it. Hopefully I really like it. But yes, I'm excited to throw these in March as well, instead of just reading straight fantasy. You know, trust me, I love my fantasy. I love it, but I also love romance. So being able to flip a little bit back and forth, just moving the genres a little bit for me is always a good thing. Plus, it helps if you get into a reading slump. So there you have it, guys. That is my Q1 TBR. Let me know down below what your TBR for the first quarter is, or just for one of those months, January, February, March, or just what your next read is going to be. I would absolutely love to know. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and be good people.
When you feel it's hopeless, when you think that you lost, oh, I will take your hand and we'll rise up from the dust. Oh,